Okay, this is another reaction, this time to episode 7 of 1899, which is called The Storm. This is actually the penultimate episode of the series. Before I go any further, I just want to correct something from last time. I referred to the character as Mai Ling for some reason, when of course she's called Ling Yi. So I just want to put that on record. I don't know where I got that idea from, but anyway, she's called Ling Yi. So this particular episode begins with Daniel and Maura in bed, in what looks like a fairly modern style room. And as they're together, there is suddenly an announcement over the PA, which says initiating shutdown. I'm assuming that by that is meant that the simulation is going to be shut down. That's what it's referring to. We're getting the siren sounding again. So what happens is that Daniel wakes up, just like in the previous episodes. So I've had other characters doing this. He wakes up in room 1011, which is the room that Maura was in the asylum. Remember, in the last episode, she locked him in that room. So he needs to get out because he realizes that the shutdown is taking place. So he needs to escape, and he explores that room and finds that he's able to use like a steel pole to access another compartment beyond the hull of the ship. That kind of scenario. Manages to get into this sort of crawl space, and the inside of this crawl space is lined with electric cables. It looks almost like the inside of a computer, which is not a surprise. We also then see the first mate again, and he goes to what looks a bit like the infirmary on board the ship. It's got lots of little cupboards with drawers in them, and he pulls one of the drawers out, and hidden behind the drawer is a keyboard, much like a sort of modern iPad, which you can simply type on the screen. Once again, it's evidence for the sort of futuristic design of the program. And we also then see Maura searching for Ike, because obviously he was yeeted back to the back to the Kerberos. Sorry, back to the Prometheus in the previous episode. So he goes searching for she goes searching for Captain Ike. On board the actual ship, there's a storm raging, hence the title of the episode, and Oleg takes over the helm of the ship. He goes to steer it, while the others keep up shoveling the coal and whatnot. And Daniel, having escaped from the room in the asylum, goes back out into the landscape, and he approaches the wooden cross that we've seen a number of times, which seem to mark the site of a grave, but actually it doesn't, because underneath the wooden cross is like a secret room, and he climbs down a ladder and enters this room, and that is where he finds the boy who's hiding there. We later learn that the boy is called Elliot. And during their conversation, there's this reference to, have you found the code? I'm assuming this is something to do with like a computer code, like a password or something of that nature. And when it comes to Maura, when she's in conversation with Daniel again, she's adamant she doesn't remember being a mother even. She doesn't remember having a son. And he tells her that this is a false memory, and that they're part of this construct, this simulation. So there we get the evidence. There we get the it's spelled out in black and white now that we're part of some sort of video game, some sort of simulation is taking place. We also find out later that that simulation lasts for only 8 days and then it shuts down. There's also an interesting comment made in respect of Plato's cave. So if you remember the analogy that's drawn there, it's this idea that you're sitting in front of a fire, and you've got these shapes, these shadows, which are appearing on a wall in front of you, and you think the shadows are the reality, that they are real, but in reality, of course, they're not. It's the people that are walking behind that are casting those shadows. So again, it's this idea that you think the simulation is real, but in reality, of course, it's not. It's a simulation. It isn't real. And I'll probably have something to say about that later on as well, and come back to that. Things are going from bad to worse on board the ship. The storm is, raging outside. The boat is creaking, and it looks at any moment as if it could actually just be smashed to pieces and go down. So when Oleg is steering the ship, Ling Yi accompanies him up to the bridge, and she is presented with a vision of her dead mother. Her dead mother's on the deck, sort of summoning her, join me, that kind of scenario. So she goes out looking for her mother, and Oleg deserts the wheel to basically bring Ling Yi back inside. And as he does so, he's hit by a powerful wave which smashes the railing on the ship, and he's basically swept overboard. He's dead. And this seems to coincide with the shutdown of the simulation. The characters are all basically they're finished. They're going to die. They're going to cease, or at least many of them are going to do so. What we also find is that when Daniel is reunited with Maura, he's talking about he needs some sort of code for the simulation, and he says it can be represented by anything. It could be a door, it could be a key. and she produces the necklace that we've seen many, many times, the one that's got the inverted triangle symbol on it, the gold necklace. And it opens up, and inside it there's a key. Now, she received that necklace when she got the letter telling her about sailing on the Prometheus. On the Kerberos. So she's had it since she's been on board the ship. And it seems, therefore, that this is the key that he's looking for. Like I said, things go from bad to worse on board the ship, and a lot of the characters end up dying. We have Lucien suffers another grand mal, another epileptic fit. They try to get his medicine, his little vials of medicine, but it's too late. He dies. The other one who dies is Angel. And what also happens is that when they're trying to shut off the bulkheads as the water is streaming in, France sacrifices himself to protect Tova, because there's a handle on one side of the bulkhead, whereas there isn't on the other. So he stays on the one side, shuts the bulkhead off, which means, of course, that he drowns, but he saves Tova in the process. And the Danish couple, they also die. The priest and his wife, they're also drowned as well. So what's happened is that the first mate has located where Elliot is, the boy. Interestingly enough, he does now speak English most of the time. When he's in conversation with people like Mara, he speaks English, even though before we'd seen him only speaking German to the captain. And so the first mate has actually located where Elliot is in that little little hiding place underneath the cross, and he's brought to the study where Henry Singleton is by the first mate. The Henry Singleton comes out with some interesting stuff. He's basically looking at what's happened. He sees that things are shutting down. The simulation is coming to an end, and he's basically says something along the lines of, every time this happens, people's judgment is clouded by their emotion. You shouldn't make choices simply based on emotion. And then over the PA, we get a message. This is to the people on. It's a message that's given to Mara and Daniel specifically. Basically, the PA says, "You failed again," and the person delivering the message this time is Henry Singleton, and he asks for the key. He's going to return the boy back to Mara as long as he gets the key. And we learn that the Kerberos will be moved into the archive. So it's reached a certain point in time. They've gone beyond what they did before, as Elliot says to his father, we've got further this time. But they haven't got to the end. They've reached the end of the road basically with this iteration, and it's going to be shut down, and it is shut down. That's basically what's happening. So Henry Singleton now has the little pyramid in his possession, and he knows how to operate it because you twist one of the corners of it, one of the angles and the top of it, and it actually opens up. So he's simply waiting now for the key to actually to activate it. That's what he now requires from Mora. We then see the passengers, the remaining passengers on board the Kerberos, Ling Yi in particular, and she watches as the boat approaches a whirlpool and simply disappears down this whirlpool, but then seems to rise up again. And we also see Captain Ike again, who is on board the Prometheus, already drinking. He's got his little bottle there, which he empties, throws away. But then he realizes something is happening, so he goes out on deck. And as he does so, the Kerberos comes up out of the whirlpool and then is level and basically joins the other graveyard of ships that are in it, basically that have joined all the other failed experiments in the archive, because that's what they are. They're now just in an archive. That's where they live. And the episode ends with another great music track. It's got a track called The Wind by Cat Stevens, again from a similar sort of 70s era as a lot of the music has been. So that's basically that's a sort of overview of what happens in this episode. And obviously we get more sort of detail here. We get to learn more in terms of what's actually happening. It just confirms what we already know, I suppose you could say, because all this stuff about initiating a shutdown, being in a kind of simulation, this is all stuff that we already knew was the case. It was just we needed it to be confirmed. So one of the sort of areas that I wanted to come back to was this idea, which was, I suppose, triggered when I was thinking in terms of the sort of similarities between 1899 and the Christopher Nolan film Inception. There's probably other things you could bring into the discussion here. I mean, you could also bring in something like The Matrix. Would be a highly suitable sort of comparison. The reason I'm mentioning those sort of films is because it's patently obvious that we're in a simulation, so then we've got to be asking certain pertinent questions in respect of that, in respect of the actual simulation, in terms of the locations and also the characters. And it seems pretty obvious from what we've seen so far that everything is a simulation. So especially when it comes to the location. So for example, the Kerberos and the Prometheus don't exist. They're simulations, they're fabrications. They do not exist in reality. We're not in 1899 at all. Definitely not. Okay? And even if you look at something like Henry Singleton's study, as I refer to it, with its trim phones, with its old-fashioned computers, etc., etc., its sort of steampunk design, that's not real either. It doesn't exist either. Those black pyramids that we see in the landscape, for example, they don't exist. Okay, they're all a simulation. All of this stuff is a simulation. When it comes to the characters, I think I mentioned that in a previous episode, but you're now wondering who is real out of these characters. Is Maura real? Is she a real person, or is she just a simulation as well? Is Henry Singleton real, or is he a simulation? What about the boy? What about Elliot? Is he real? What about Daniel? Is he real? Is the captain real? If any of these characters exist, it will only be the major ones. And it's quite possible that some of the ones that we think are a part of that group might not even exist. In terms of what's going on, with it being a simulation, it looks as if the characters, the main characters, are connected together in some way, possibly in a kind of, I don't know how to describe this. They're sort of dream sharing. That's why I wanted to mention Inception. It's almost as if they're connected to that silver suitcase, like the characters are in Inception, with the little cables in their wrists. It has that kind of feel to it, that this is what's happening. They're dream sharing. We don't know who's controlling the dream. We don't know what year we're in. We think it's Henry Singleton who's responsible for all this, but it might not be. He might be simply, well, yes. I mean, he's part of the simulation in any case. So yeah, Henry Singleton is part of the whole process as well. They all are. The first mate, Henry Singleton, Maura, Daniel, the boy, Captain Ike. So yeah, I mean, it's as if there's possibly another level to this that we're not aware of, that somebody else is controlling things. I don't know. The creator. Okay, so I don't think that that Henry Singleton is the creator. I'm not convinced of that now. I think he's just as much a part of the simulation as everybody else. Why would the creator be? Why would the creator be in the simulation? Doesn't make sense to me. Yeah, I'm not. Yes, I think I'll sort of leave it there, but I think that's a point to bear in mind. I don't think that he's the creator at all now. I think that's possibly a red herring. I'm trying to think of anything else I've missed. No, I think that's possibly all I'm going to say. Again, it's been quite a long reaction, coming up to 25 minutes according to the screen. So I think I'll leave it at that. And If I have any other further thoughts, I might just tack them on to the beginning of the next reaction. I think that makes sense. Don't want to make this too long. And I've only got one more episode to go. So I mean, I think that's great. I've enjoyed making these videos because I thought it would be interesting to make them not having any spoilers whatsoever. I should add that I did watch the trailer, so obviously I did have some tiny spoilers in the sense of I saw the black crystalline substance. I saw what I assumed was the sort of mutiny taking place on board the ship. I think the whirlpool was in the trailer as well. But I've deliberately avoided it. What I've done is, when it comes to the episodes, I've looked on Wikipedia and only checked up to where the particular episode that I've watched ends. I've deliberately not scrolled any further because I don't want to see anything else. In fact, I'm not sure what the next one is. I think the number 8 is called The Key, but I may be wrong on that score. Anyway, that's the end of my reaction to episode 7, The Storm. And like I say, I'll join you again next time for number 8.